Welcome to Talking Giants, presented by DraftKings. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick. And after 4 years, the first time in this podcast history, Dave Gettleman is no longer the Giants GM. He, in quotation marks, retired, but it was a forced retirement. And Joe Judge is staying, but with a question mark. I'm pretty confident Joe Judge is staying. We're going to go through all of that. Justin, the season ended. It was a very bad season for this Giants team, 4-13 overall. Didn't go the way it wanted for numerous reasons. But the main reason why this Giants team, after 4 years, is not a good team is because of Dave Gettleman. And he is gone, and that is a good thing. There's a lot of things that are annoying me right now with the Giants organization, but the fact that he is gone, although late, 2 years too late, it is a good thing.
Yeah, hi Bobby Skinner. In a vacuum, today is a good day. Monday, January 10th, 2022. It's a good day. It is a celebration worthy of getting Dave Gettleman out of the building. I know. I see you on the other end of the Zoom call, and you're wanting to butt in already. But really, like I said, in a vacuum, it is a good day. We got through the season. I think April 26, 2018, along with signing Nate Solder, those two moves of drafting Saquon Barkley on that day and then signing Nate Solder, I mean, those two moves are the epitome of, I think, the failure of this tenure. And those are two moves that have very much still impacted us, where we can look at the years 2020 and then especially 2021 and be like, well, what are some of the main reasons why the Giants aren't competing? It's because of the lack of good football players that we got out of the years 2018 and 2019. And, the flawed mentality has continued the last 2 years, but Dave Gettleman should have been fired for his two worst years. And he finally, 2 years later and 2 years late, he was.
See, I just don't view this as a good day because I am pissed off today the way the Giants are handling things. This Joe Judge situation has went from bad to worse because of the way John Mara has handled it. There's talks about like, hey, John Mara would like Kevin Abrams to probably be the next guy in line, but he knows that he can't. So it's like his thinking is still wrong, but it's fan backlash is what's keeping him from doing something like that.
Thank God.
Yeah, thank God for fan backlash. So I am very frustrated at the way that John Mara is handling this and the Joe Judge situation. We talked about it on Friday. Like, do we think I said I would be shocked if Joe Judge was not the head coach on Monday. Now he's still here, but the way they've handled it has went from, you didn't hear anger in my voice on the Friday pod. I'm angry. I am angry at the way this has been handled. But I do think we should go through Dave Gettleman and talk about that. We don't need to go crazy and beat a dead horse about Dave Gettleman.
Yeah.
But this is what I look at Dave Gettleman. First of all, your record says is what it is. 19-46 over four seasons. That's pathetic. That is pathetic. But it's deeper than that, Justin. It is deeper than that, because in his opening press conference, he said there's he showed his vision in four things. He said we got to fix the offensive line. We have to fix the offensive line. We got to rush the passer. We got to run the ball, and we got to stop the run. And he really went all about those visions the wrong way. He talked about fixing the offensive line. After 4 years, you have one, maybe two pieces in Nick Gates for this offensive line. Like, Andrew Thomas is your only real, confident piece going. And even Nick Gates, if he didn't get injured, he's a good offensive lineman who would be a part of the future and a big part of this team. You got lucky with him. He was an undrafted free agent. You got lucky with him. If Nate Solder and Mike Remmers if Nate Solder and Kevin Zeitler never get hurt, Mike Remmers and Kevin Zeitler never get hurt in 2019, Nick Gates is not a part of this offensive line. They had to force him into play. He was the best offensive line on that team after Kevin Zeitler is sitting on the bench the entire year. Again, 4 of your 5 stars are bad football players, and depth is a part of that. You banked on guys like Matt Parrott, who didn't even start a game, and he lost the job out to Nate Solder, a washed-up version of Nate Solder, which, again, like you said, is the second worst move of his career. Your 3 depth guys were added with less than a week left before the season started. You traded a decent rotational piece in B.J. Hill and a 7th-round pick for an expiring contract of a bad player in Billy Price. And not maybe he can get better. He's a bad player. second best player on this offensive line currently, but a bad player. Couldn't even.
And
make
I don't
want to
hear about retirements, by the way, too. I don't want to hear about retirements because odds are Joe Looney would have been a worse football player than Billy Price or Ben Bredesen, Matt Score, right? I think it would have been worse because if this dude was contemplating retirement to begin with, I think he maybe wasn't in the best of shapes. Jonathan Harrison, again, a guy that was released, a guy that was cut, didn't work out. He was our first free agent signing, but he was like a futures free agent signing. He was signed before the month of March. So I don't want to hear retirement and guys just didn't work out or injuries with the offensive line because the guys that they had set in stone to begin with, including Zach Fulton too.
Zach Fulton couldn't even beat out Kenny Wiggins, who was like the worst offensive lineman I've ever seen in like preseason action in some time.
Yeah. So I don't want to hear about retirements and, just things didn't shake out right in the offensive line. You have a full gripe with the injuries on the offensive line, but it's also on the general manager to get the depth. And if there's one place where you do want to have depth, I would say it's offensive line room and the cornerback room. And they certainly have it in the cornerback room, but offensive line, probably more important, they failed. Failed.
They added Matt Skura, who was cut by a Miami Dolphins team with a bad offensive line. He was at his. You did a pick swap with the Ravens, 63 total spots. That's before comp picks even come to play for the third and fourth round. Ben Bredesen couldn't even beat out Will Hernandez, who had the worst year of his career, or Matt Skura.
Ben Bredesen couldn't even beat out Matt Score.
Yeah.
Will Hernandez gets hurt against Washington week 18, and Ben Bredesen comes in. I'm like, why is he coming in now? He should have been starting over Skura.
They made 3 real investments in the offensive line. Nate Solder was a bad decision. That's you don't need hindsight to say that. That was a bad decision. Will Hernandez, you're using hindsight, but it was bad. And going into year 4 with him, expecting him to, be the second best offensive lineman or third best offensive lineman was a bad thought process. Trusting that Matt Parrott was just gonna become better it's crazy. It is crazy to go into year 2 with really no Matt Parrott reps. He got spot reps in 2020, and just be like, hey, it's either you or Nate Solder. And this is after 4 years. This isn't year 2 when you're having this issue. This is after 4 years when it's just it looks like you didn't even care about the offensive line, let alone be bad at the ones you did get.
It's been 4 years of just hoping. Oh, I hope Eli still has a step. I hope Saquon Barkley can get healthy and somehow carry this team. We hope the offensive line can come through. We hope that there's a pass rush. Again, we talked about the edge room a lot during the regular season. We were hoping that Lorenzo Carter, you did talk about pass rush, maybe that could be a transition. We were hoping that Lorenzo Carter can come back from a torn Achilles. And outside of the last 4 games of the season, 13 games, he was nothing. He wasn't even a player on this football team. O'Shane Ximines, how pathetic. He has been a healthy scratch for half the season. And this is a guy where Dave Gettleman sits in front of a microphone and says, we feel good about these guys coming back from injuries, and we feel like they can be good. Quincy Roche, who was cut by the Pittsburgh Steelers from camp, he is your second best edge rusher this year. That is insane. That is insane. It is insane. It is insane. It is insane. So again, it has been 4 years of just, as Giants fans, we're not going to see any progress. Well, we just have to hope that things can turn around very quickly. And it just shows, again, the lack of the bad process of they're reacting based off of what they hope to happen, not actually result-driven analysis of what players can actually give you.
Or investments. Let's talk, like you said, you mentioned rushing the passer. Well, let's talk about why they can't rush the passer. Well, because you didn't invest in it. Your only real investment on the edge group was Azeez Ojulari, who, again, in the 4th year of this process, is a second-round rookie who has a ceiling probably as a number 2 rusher. That's your only real investment. I don't view Lorenzo Carter, O'Shane Ximines draft picks as real investments in the edge room. The likelihood that those guys are going to be top-notch pass rushers is just not realistic. And your defensive coordinator tried to be a blitz and be aggressive to start this season, but they couldn't even get there when they were blitzing. So Patrick Graham had to go back into the bend don't break defense. They wanted to blitz and play man. That's why they played Denver. And they're like, we can't get to the quarterback when we blitz. This is insane. And it wasn't like they were playing against Lamar Jackson. They're playing against Teddy Bridgewater, Teddy Two Gloves. So again, and looking back at it, was trading Jason Pierre-Paul the right move in a vacuum? Yes, it was, because you were rebuilding. But to trade Jason Pierre-Paul and essentially take that draft capital and trade for the contract of Alec Ogletree is no. That's dumb. You essentially, I know the one was a 4th-round pick and one was a 3rd-round pick, but you pick swap with the Bucks as well. You essentially traded Jason Pierre-Paul for Alec Ogletree. Like, let alone that one is just a superior player to the other, but positional value of rushing the passer versus an off-ball linebacker. It's not just like, oh man, you tried and you whiffed. Like they didn't invest in rushing the passer.
Right.
I mean, their best pass rusher is a defensive tackle in Leonard Williams, who the way they got him is maybe one of the most flawed processes of doing anything. Even though he's a good player, even though he might come up in the awards, and maybe not in a not bright way, which I'm excited for that episode. But like the process of getting Leonard Williams is probably the most flawed thought process besides the Saquon pick in the last 4 years.
Yeah, and now he has a $27 million cap hit next year, and his contract may need to be renegotiated again. He's not worth that. I don't know if anybody. I don't know if there's not a lot of players in the NFL that are worth $27 million if you're not a quarterback, top tier wide receiver, just top tier.
We're going to talk about Leo on the awards episode.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
So I have takes on it. I want to save it. And then he said he wanted to run the ball and stop the run. Well, guess what? Your run defense this year was ranked 24th in the NFL. And your way of running the ball was drafting a running back number 2 overall. You could have taken the Jets trade. They offered it for the 3rd pick. You could have gotten that same package. You could have went and built the offensive line, got a Quentin Nelson. And you drafted a running back 2nd overall. Who, and by the way, this generational running back had less yards per carry, the same amount of yards as Devontae Booker on more carries. By the way, Booker out-received him too on 1 less catch.
Oh, really?
3.7 yards per carry. The 24th ranked rushing offense. And, we don't need to beat the drum on this, but like the Saquon pick is by far the biggest flaw of the Dave Gettleman era. And
it's not just about Saquon. It's not, and that's the whole point that people have missed throughout the years. Well, what do you have to do? Darnold, Rosen, blah, 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 blah. Like, that's not the point. It's the process of which how the Giants go about their business. You take a quarterback, then you find out the quarterback's terrible, and then you can restart again, and you can be back in that same spot you were just 1 or 2 years ago when you find out that quarterback's bad, right? Or you trade down.
Here's the thing.
Or you trade down, you invest in further capital, and you invest in your team further that way. Instead, the reasoning was this running back makes your offensive line better, which, I mean, I can't. How much has that been proven wrong? Whether it's by logic or analytics, right? You don't need to have much of a big brain to say an offensive line is the thing that mostly drives running back production. He makes the quarterback better. He makes the defense better. So why I partially don't have a voice is week 18 against Washington, I was yelling and screaming about Saquon Barkley touched by the hand of God. It was just so, and it's not his fault. It's not his fault, but that is the one move where either you screw up that 2018 number 2 pick and then you can reset and rebuild even further, or you invest in rebuilding and then we have more resources, more capital for 2019, 2020, et cetera, et cetera. But instead, they just lost everything.
I actually disagree with that take, though. Because if you miss on Saquon and Rosen, you miss. Unless you're the Cardinals who, do the, where they which essentially never happens. Like that, and the Giants wouldn't have done that, by the way. Like,
well, they did
Sam
miss
Darnold,
on Saquon.
Josh Rosen. But here's my point: is that because I don't believe in taking a quarterback in if you don't believe in them. So the Giants clearly didn't believe in one of those quarterbacks. Maybe Eli had more influence.
No, I'm not
that,
saying to take a quarterback, but let's just people have always said, well, what would you have done? So hypothetically, you take
not draft
Darnold,
a running back, trade back, pick a different position.
That's the point. But that's what I'm saying. People don't understand that because they just liked Saquon.
But when people say like, oh, well, you could have drafted a bad QB and found out he's bad, I actually don't agree. Like, if you miss on QB, you miss. Like, it's not Madden. Like, your job is based on the QB spot, and we'll go quickly through the draft. But again, everyone is kind of at this point with Saquon. And then, so I just want to do this quick talk about just the draft. Like, how is he as a drafter? Round 1 has to be hit. Saquon's a horrible pick, and right now he's not even a good player. Like, for all the reasons we just mentioned. I don't care where you are on the Daniel Jones argument. No one says his fifth-year option should be picked up. So that is a miss right now. Dexter Lawrence has a decent floor, but he's not an impact player. He's not. He is not an impact player. He's a solid player. He's not an impact player. DeAndre Baker, you'd moved up 7 spots, traded a 4th and 5th round pick. He's not a good player. He was a lazy person, and then he got in trouble with the law, even though it's free DeAndre Baker in these parts. Andrew Thomas, amazing, and Kadarius Toney is a to be decided. Like, I know people have the strongest takes in the world on Toney, but it's not like Toney was playing at DeAndre Baker's level. When Toney played, he was good. If he can stay healthy, he'll be good. If he can't, it won't, obviously. But so Kadarius Toney is a to be decided. And then rounds 3 through 7, again, through 4 years, like, you should have some big hits from there. I'm not saying that, oh, why don't we have, Max Crosby? I'm not going to play that game. Like, why didn't we draft Max Crosby? But after 4 years, you should have some big hits from rounds 3 through 7. And here's the decent hits from that. Lorenzo Carter, he's not going to be back probably next year. And even if he is, he's not a starter. Darius Slayton, who won't be a starter next year probably. Julian Love, a backup. And Tate Crowder, who might not even be a starter last year. And they even drafted T.J. Brunson over Tate Crowder. If they didn't have the Mr. Irrelevant pick, Tate Crowder wouldn't have been there because they thought T.J. Brunson was a better player. You wasted a pick on a guy like Kyle Laletta. Like, he didn't hit in the draft. He got some solid players here and there, but he didn't hit in the draft besides, right now, Andrew Thomas and Xavier McKinney. Those are... Am I missing anybody else? Maybe Kadarius Toney. And Aziz we can count as a hit, even though I don't think any of us expect him to be some amazing... He's just a good player. And then in the cap space, the Giants had the 5th least projected cap. You had to restructure guys over 10-plus times this year. You couldn't field a full roster in the last year. He had 3 spending sprees in 4 years. Like, this team's best players are built on free agency. Built on free agency on a team that's supposed to be rebuilding. You had 3 spending sprees in 4 years. And here's what bothers me most about Dave Gettleman just as a person the most, and then we can probably get on to some Judge stuff. What pisses me off, the one thing that maybe makes me the most mad about Dave Gettleman, and I know people aren't going to like this take, it is that in 2019, with 3 weeks left, to save his ass, he went to John Mara and threw Pat Shurmur under the bus. Now you're saying, well, Pat Shurmur's a bad coach, he deserves to be fired. You're right. But there is no way in hell that Pat Shurmur should have walked out that building without Dave Gettleman by his side.
Yep.
And Dave Gettleman threw him under the bus, which if you ask me who do I want out of those two, I'm taking Pat Shurmur 10 times out of 10. He developed the QB that you drafted him. He had us excited about a QB that people hated that pick. Yep. I mean, hated that pick. And by the end of the year, we were saying we're sorry to Daniel Jones. So he was worried more about job security and playing John Mara than he was about building long-term success for the New York Giants.
Yep. I think we just spent 15-ish minutes ripping most of his major decisions apart and his philosophy and counter-arguing what he said, which, I mean, it's not hard to do. We probably didn't rip him enough, and we probably aren't emotional about it enough. That's why I started off the show saying today's a good day. Yet he got to retire. He got to finish the season. He got to take pictures with his family before the game, which apparently I think he did that every year, at the end of every year. And the joke that I told when somebody told me that, I said the joke back, well, maybe he thought he was getting fired every single year. So that's why he took pictures with his family. So he got literally the same exact treatment as Tom Coughlin did, except Tom Coughlin had to stand in front of a podium and resign and retire, so to speak. And
to counter that, Tom was saying goodbye to us, though. We love Tom.
I know.
Like, that was a good. I wouldn't want to say goodbye. We wanted to say goodbye to Tom.
I know, but the fact that memory of him walking by John Mara, which I love that, by the way. I think I watched it.
Thug Nasty, baby. That was just up on my Facebook memories. Like, love you, Thug Nasty. Quote tweeting that. Or
I watched it about 20 times this week. But the fact that we have that memory, and it's just a sickening memory. Sickening memory. Ring of Honor member Tom Coughlin, 2-time Super Bowl champion, guy who brought this franchise back to glory.
Football hero.
And Dave Gettleman gets the same treatment as he does.
Well, if you want to bet the under on the Giants over-under, you can do it with DraftKings. The NFL playoffs are here, baby. And DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is kicking things off with a huge offer. Counting down to Super Bowl 56. Is that going to be in Texas or in LA? New customers can get 56 to 1 odds on any wildcard team to win their game. Bet just $5 and win 280 and oh, see, that's why I was like, that doesn't. I almost said it wrong. 280 in free bets in your team if your team is victorious. I was about to say 280 and 3, but it's 280 in free bets. That's right. Bet just $5 in any NFL playoff game, and DraftKings Sportsbook will give new customers an additional $280 in free bets. Not 3 bets, free bets. If the team they choose win their game. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, it's in New York, you still have something to play for this wild card weekend. Everyone can play huge cash prizes with DraftKings Daily Fantasy Football Contest. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code JOHNBOY and get 56 to 1 odds on any NFL team. Can we editors note to can we put the numbers in numbers and not letters? Bet just $5 with 280 and it's really screwing me up. Bet just $5 and win 280 in free bets if your team wins. Just use numbers. And it's all caps. That's promo code JOHNBOY at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. What happened to the hotline?
Must be 21 years or older. New Jersey, Indiana, Pennsylvania only. New customers only. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Or in Indiana, 1-800-9 with it. Yeah, the hotline's not there.
I remembered it like the back of my hand. I didn't even have it pulled up.
And I usually read the DraftKings ad. That's pretty good. That's pretty good on you, kid.
I'm the producer. Nothing.
I just called you kid like I'm Dave Gettleman. Very patronizing.
Very, very condescending. Yeah. Nothing gets by me. I'm the best producer at John Boy Media.
All right. Now I'm gonna get pissed off. This is pissed off Bobby now. John Mara is screwing up this Joe Judge stuff like crazy, doing this long drawn out process. Why has the decision not been made? And we're gonna tear it up because I do not think the GM is making the decision. He may make the decision, but I think it's kind of like there's going to be bias in it. There's going to be a guy trying to get a job, and the fact that let's keep it real. If John Mara wanted Joe Judge fired, he'd be fired. He would be fired. The longer it goes out, the better chance of Joe Judge keeping his job. And I believe Joe Judge is essentially staying. The players in the locker room, not just from their press conferences, from talking to them, they believe he's staying. I mean, we have like 7 to 10 players that we talk to. Reached out to them and I talked about it and they're like, oh, you think Joe just they were like didn't even know what I was saying when I thought of, mentioned the possibility of Joe Judge being fired. They don't think he's gone. I don't think he's gone. But here's the thing that pisses me off. How was this decision not made? You had 33 games to figure this out. 33 games to figure this out. I know Sunday was bad. The freaking QB sneak pissed me off like crazy. Might be the thing that pissed me off the most about Joe Judge. But how does a Jake Fromm start have any impact on what happened the 32 games before that? How? How does that have any impact on bringing that man back or not? And what people say, well, what the press conference, that changed things. And I said this in the video earlier. You know what happened since that press conference? 7 days. 7 days to make this decision. This decision should be made. This decision should be made, and the only way it isn't made is if the GM that you think is the best comes in and says, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But here's what the thing that pisses me off is Joe Judge should be gone. We're gonna tie a head coach who hot seat went from hot to on fire because John Mara and his little sources dangle Joe Judge above the fire, and they're continuing to do it when you're listening to this podcast. They continue to dangle him in front of the fire. The pressure on him is going to be unbelievably hot, and that's why I think that he wants Kevin Abrams to be the GM, even though Kevin Abrams won't be the GM. It's because he realized this is it. I'm never going to get a head coaching gig. I need to get myself another year because he believes in what he's doing. We may not, but he believes in what he's doing, and So now we're going to get a brand new GM, and we're going to talk about how it affects the search, whether it's told that Joe Judge is being brought back or it's left in the GM's hands. But you have this guy's seat so freaking hot if he's brought back with a brand new GM. Going into an important draft where you have 5 picks in the top 100, 2 picks in the top 7. And we may have a GM and head coach who aren't fully aligned. And you could say to me, well, guess what? The GM's going to make the decision on Joe Judge. Well, guess what I was told for 2 years? Joe Judge makes the decision on his offensive coordinator. But we know damn well he didn't. And I don't think John Mara said flat out, you have to make Jason Garrett your offensive coordinator, but he was basically told, no, I think we need to do this. The first year and the second year, Joe Judge wanted Jason Garrett fired. So you were making the same stupid mistake. And this is what we were saying on the mailbag pause for the last 3 weeks, is that John Mara always does one thing that screws everything up. And it is this. It is tying Joe Judge to a new GM. Now, listen, if this was Joe Judge's third year and this was a GM we hired 2 years ago, third year, I could get behind Joe Judge being brought back. I'd probably want to move on from both of them at the state of this team right now. But to screw up this cycle again is unreal. And I don't want to hear about 1 year, like what's it hurt to do it. This offseason is so important with this draft.
Yeah.
They need to be on the same page. And not just like, hey, they get along, but they don't see eye to eye on everything. And again, maybe they get Joe Schoen, and it's a great fit, which I think Joe Schoen and Joe Judge actually probably would be a good fit. So it's not to say that all is totally lost. But doing this way screwed up, because guess what Joe Schoen would want? You know what Joe Schoen would want? He may like Joe Judge. He may agree with him on stuff. They may see eye to eye. But you know who also Joe Schoen would understand and see eye to eye with? The head coach that he got to hire without any pressure from the John Mara saying, hey, this is who the head coach is right now. What do you think about this guy? Because I promise you, whether it's the right guy or not, whoever the GM is hiring their own head coach, they're going to want that guy. They're not going to hire him because John Mara said. They're going to hire that coach because he wants him. Whether it's Kevin O'Connell or Brian Flores or Josh McDaniels or whoever. They would probably prefer to hire their own coach, even if they do see eye to eye with Joe Judge and don't hate him.
The Vikings and the Bears made key decisions on their franchise weeks ago. The Vikings, who barely missed the postseason this year and who are in the postseason hunt every single year, most likely made a decision on Mike Zimmer the second that they were mathematically eliminated, or they knew whenever they were mathematically eliminated from playoff contention that both Mike Zimmer was going to be gone and the GM was going to be gone. You don't think Mike Zimmer, a head coach who has a record about 20 games above 500 throughout all of his years of being a head coach, you don't think that maybe he would deserve the right for a new GM to come in and then evaluate the state of the head coach and if they want to work with him or not? The Bears, with a new quarterback, now Matt Nagy has not been very good. Matt Nagy arguably should have been fired last year. Matt Nagy has postseason appearances.
This is keeping Matt Nagy with Justin Fields. And it's like what everyone knows he's going to be fired.
They fired Ryan Pace. They fired Matt Nagy, GM and head coach at the same time. Two football teams who you can argue dysfunctional. Not as dysfunctional as the Giants. Bears are a little bit closer. But two football teams who had every reason to not get off cycle to not get off cycle and to keep one or the other, but they did it. What has Joe Judge proven?
Joe Judge has not done enough.
What is Joe Judge proven? Every single thing has gotten worse from this year. The only thing that has gotten better is in DVOA, which that's like a power ranking that I like to look at based off of efficiency. Efficiency power rankings. The only thing that got better is the defense went from 19th in 2020 and they went from 18th in 2021. That is the only thing that has gotten better. Explosive play rankings, everything has gotten worse, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Efficiency metrics, it is so much worse on the offensive side of the ball. And here's how much worse it is. 25th in 2020, 31st in 2021. So yeah, it is a lot worse. But you want to know what? It's not that much worse. So what has he done? Besides thinking during the interview process in 2020, thinking that this guy is Bill Parcells, thinking that you got your Parcells, what has he actually done to convince you that he should stay?
Well, here's the thing. I do think Joe Judge got screwed. You know,
he did.
Injuries totally screwed him. And you mentioned like the offense of rankings and stuff.
And Jason Garrett,
those were a lot higher with Daniel Jones. You know, and then they finally let him fire Jason Garrett, which he had wanted to do for a long time. And Daniel Jones gets hurt in the second play. Like these last. Now I don't think this roster is as bad as the last 3 weeks have said, and coaching comes into play with that, especially Freddie Kitchens, who will be gone. So. I do think Joe Judge got a raw deal on a lot of that stuff with the offense. He got screwed by John Mara meddling. But at the same time, like we said, don't make the same mistake you just did with Jason Garrett with Joe Judge and the next GM. Injuries did screw him. Because, in the last 2 weeks, our passing offense went from 21st to 31st. Like, even 4 weeks of the backups, they were still ranked a 21st passing offense.
Yeah, I mean, I will say from not just from a yard standpoint, because I don't think it's fully helpful to look at yards per game and stuff like that. But it basically was around where 2020 was, and then without Jones, it got to the Jacksonville Jaguars level. So there you go.
I mean, Jones was averaging like 250 per game. Like Jones was,
It doesn't matter, Bobby. It doesn't matter.
But when Jones got hurt before the Bucs game, we would say Jones has been pretty good. He's been kind of good. Not we're sold on him, pick up the option, but like he's been kind of good. And then the Bucs game happened, and then the injury happened after the Eagles game, which he played bad.
Giants were top 10 in yards per drive towards the beginning part of the season, but they were still like bottom quarter in points per drive. It was the strangest thing ever.
And that's why Jason Garrett should have been fired a long time before. And again, injuries did screw him. And I was going to lead to my point to that.
But I want to expand. I mean, you already did a good job on why was this decision not made, but we literally went from Sunday morning, people talked to me at the tailgate. Yeah, I'm 75-25, Judge is staying. And then Sunday night, Jay Glazer does not say things to say things. Jay Glazer and maybe somebody else is like, he may be out. And Jay Glazer was like 50-50 at 1 p.m., and then by the time 7 p.m., 8 p.m. rolls around, Jay Glazer's like, I'm kind of closer that Judge is going to be gone than stays. So kind of wipe away before. And the anger that I have right now is just, again, process and not having your mind made up. And why is it now that you're going back and forth? So I'm disappointed and upset and angry by that. I'm not disappointed and angry necessarily that Judge is here because we knew that, but the back and forth wishy-washy, why the sudden doubt? If 2 weeks ago, around Christmas time, when Adam Schefter puts out that report that Judge and Jones are staying, but mainly Judge, that he puts out that report that Judge is staying, John Mara thought that there's a part of him that still thought he had his Bill Parcells, but then a game with, a couple games with Jake Fromm and Mike Glennon, that's going to change his mind on what he has, that he doesn't have his Parcells and not the entire body of work. That's going to be the thing that changes your mind.
When I think John Mara can't do anything dumber, he does. Like this handling of this situation, it's unbelievable.
I would have rather them just
unreal.
say, almost like what they're doing today. I would have rather them just say, we're keeping him. And that's how I thought it was going to go down, and I wouldn't have been. And again, I'm sorry if you're not.
If they're
on Twitter.
keeping him. That's what they should have done. Which they're gonna keep him, and they're not doing that.
No, but I wish that there just wasn't the report, because I'm not just. And these aren't just reports from people that if Jay Glazer's saying it, there was doubt in the building last night, and then something happened.
Yeah. Something
happened where minds were changed, and now I guess he's safe. I would have rather it just be. You stay resolute. Joe Judge is staying. And that's what I thought was going to happen. And I would have been fine with that. I would have been I don't want Judge to be here, but I would have been fine with the reasoning.
It turned a bad situation, which would have been keeping Joe Judge and bringing him with a brand new GM in a third year with his hot seat. It took that bad decision, and it's made it incredibly worse because you're doing this whole dog and pony show. You're embarrassing yourself, John Mara. You're talking about not wanting to fire coaches every other year. This is embarrassing you way more than firing a coach every other year. When you think he can't get any dumber, he gets dumber. It's unreal how bad this is.
And then rumors start to creep out that Judge is meeting with the owners and Judge may stay. Blah 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 blah. So then the players speak, which I guess is routine. But why is Dexter Lawrence, poor Dexter Lawrence, the first person to be asked about Joe Judge's job security? That is the one situation where I'm like, John Mara's a fraud, that he's putting his players out there. I don't care if it's routine. That's why
you should have this shit done by now.
That's correct. You should have it done. John Mayer should have put out a statement or even something. I don't know. Dexter Lawrence, Logan Ryan, and Daniel Jones should not be the first three people that we hear from as Giants fans regarding Joe Judge's job security. I would hate that. Jay Glazer reported that there was some discomfort in the locker room, right? He reported there's some guys in the locker room that don't want him to be there. If I had to do that, I would want that guy gone. I am not responsible to comment on the shittiness of this organization. That's not my job. I would hate that. I hate that for those guys. Hate it.
It's unreal. And so we talked about all the cons. Now, again, I do want to, I think we do a good job of being balanced, so it's not like, oh, let's just cuss out Joe Judge. Because we have been saying he should be fired over half the season. For over half the season, me and you are both on he should be fired. The GM cycle, the offense not producing. Yeah. We've both been on that. Now, again, he got screwed. He got screwed by this Giants. Two things can be true at the same time. He got screwed by this Giants organization. If he's gone, that means Patrick Graham is probably gone.
At this point, I'm not
really
about that.
The overall personnel sucked. But here's the difference between Joe Judge and a guy like Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio's defense was balling, and his offense was mediocre with a mediocre at best QB. Most of the time, bad quarterback play. Vic Fangio got a raw deal. Vic Fangio did what he was brought in to do. Joe Judge hasn't. We got excited about the 6-10 season. Things were on the up and up. This year they get screwed by injuries and they just fall apart. And then you fire Jason Garrett midseason, which even it being the 100% right decision, it puts the pressure on you and it's not a good look. And then Jones gets hurt and you have an inoperable offense. For the last 4 games of the season, the first 2 games with Glennon were bad, but they weren't as bad as these last 4 games. The last 4 games have been an inoperable offense with the guy in Mike Glennon who's been able to operate an offense for majority of his career, who put up 20 points, over 20 points in 3 of the 5 games he played last year. So again, personnel injuries screwed them. The offensive line screwed them, but Joe Judge didn't do enough to earn this ability to stay on with a new GM. Can we talk about how it affects the GM search?
Yeah.
Now there may be some guys, but I'm not naive enough to think that Joe Judge being here makes guys be like, I don't want that job. Sorry, I'm not taking that job.
There are 2 guys that I think it would, and there are 2 guys that is on everybody's dream list that I don't even think are going to get interviews. Ed Dodds would not do it, and Joe Hortz. I'm with you in saying, why would somebody say no to an opportunity to prove themselves, number one, but also a promotion and to make more money? And also, it still is the Giants. Whether you want to like it or not, it still is the New York Football Giants. So those 4 things, why wouldn't somebody, especially going out there, proving yourself, turning around the Giants, and also more money? You're going to be getting more money, as the Giants GM versus the assistant director of player personnel or the VP of player personnel, right? For the Cardinals. There's somebody that we're interviewing. Adrian Wilson's coming from the Cardinals. So that's the bottom line. But those 2 guys, Joe Hortz on everybody's dream list, Ed Dodds, everybody's dream list, I don't even think they're going to get an interview.
Okay, I agree. Will McClay has turned down every interview he's ever gotten. So
Jerry Jones will never let him leave as long as he's alive.
Now, so I think you can get a really good GM candidate in the next week or 2. I do. I really do. A guy like Joe Shane, Ryan Poles, whoever. I do. But here's the issue. Those guys want to get jobs. There's not a lot of GM openings this year. They're not stupid. They know that John Mayer wants to keep Joe Judge. John Mayer doesn't want to fire Joe Judge, or else he would have fired Joe Judge. It's not John Mayer isn't not firing Joe Judge because he wants to let the next GM decide. John Mayer's not firing Joe Judge because he wants to keep Joe Judge. You don't think the new GM's going to come in, even if he doesn't fully believe it? Yeah, I can work with Joe. And even if it's on a 1-year tryout basis, but that is going, they're going to do that. Like we said, does Joe Shane probably want to get his own head coach? Yeah. But will he come in and say, yeah, I'll work with Joe? We see eye to eye on things, and they may see eye to eyes. But that is going to, and it's going to be a part of the bias. And that's going to help, that's going to help John Mayer pick whoever. Yeah. Because John Mayer does not want Joe Judge fired. Unless like four out of 6 or 7 of the candidates come in and say absolutely not, no Joe Judge, then Joe Judge is staying. Joe Judge is staying as the Giants head coach. There's still some chance that it's not, but they don't do this whole show if they don't want Joe Judge as their head coach. John Mara wants Joe Judge to be his head coach, and he will be his coach.
Thank God they already ruled out Abrams. Thank God.
For the dumbest reason, though. For a stupid reason, because they know the fan base wouldn't be accepted.
I mean, Paul Schwartz told us that weeks ago. So I'm still mad at it, but I'm not mad at it's not new mad. It's just old mad. Thank God Abrams is out of here. So at least that aspect of it is not possible where somebody already in the building, right? I'm 70-30. I'm 70-30, 70 thinking that Judge is going to stay, but there is 30% of me who thinks that John Mara may be open to it if a new GM would have to blow him away, similar to how Joe Judge blowed John Mara away 2 years ago.
Blew him
If he well, that's what she said.
He blowed the house down.
If he blew him away, then maybe. Then I still think there is a maybe. The Giants sent out a letter to the regular season ticket holders today, and I want to find it and I want to read it because there's a good excerpt of it. But it did not mention Joe Judge by name, and there's a key line that was said in there that I do want to read. So, we envision a leader who displays a strategic, long-term vision for our franchise, an excellent communicator, and someone who will oversee our entire football operations, including player personnel, college scouting, and coaching. If they're actually serious about that, then you would let that person fire Chris Pettit, get Chris Mara out of here, get Tim McDonald out of here, get everybody out of here that has nepotism and everybody who is going to make a Twitter account 2 months from now and then showcase that they're stupid on social media like Steven Verderosa.
Steven Verderosa for GM. Let's just have it fun if we're going to be this bad.
You're going to get Kevin Abrams out of here, even though, like I said, we talked about this week ago, toss up. Kevin Abrams is one of those guys that just does what the GM tells him to do, and here you manage the cap like how the GM tells you to do it, but it's like a guy like Chris Pettit that's actually feeding vital information that the GM needs. So that even includes Joe Judge. 30% chance of me that says it could happen if John Mara's blown away, and if John Mara says, okay, go do it. Because Joe Judge was not mentioned by name in that letter that was sent to regular season ticket holders.
So I think John Mara's hiding under the disguise of we're gonna let the next GM decide. But I'm at 85-15 if we're doing these made up percentages.
Sure.
That Judge is back, and again, this is just such an important offseason with this draft to do this. It's frustrating.
We're gonna try to run it back like 2006. Ernie Accorsi retires. Tom Coughlin stays. We hire a new GM. And we win the Super Bowl next year. That's exactly what we're going to do. I had
some people in my mentions like, you probably won a Coughlin gone in 06. Like, well, first of all, I didn't.
First of all, I was 8.
It was like, first of all, I didn't. And if you want to, like, and again, like, there's people who just bang, sports radio or, Twitter. Like, it's hysterics. It's like Colin Gillespie gets signed before Kenny Galladay and people freaking out that it's a bad look. Like, no, it's not. This is free agency. This is how stuff works. I think we try and do a good job of keeping level-headed. But Tom Coughlin they were winning games,
The Giants in 2005.
It's like when people compare Daniel Jones to Eli Manning. It's like, well, the difference is Eli Manning was in the playoffs,
Here's what I would say. The Giants in 2005 had a top 10 scoring offense in the National Football League. They won 11 games. Double-digit games. And what I think I think the Eagles were still rocking and rolling at that time, right? Were the Cowboys, I don't know if they were somewhat relevant, but, they won 11 games in Eli Manning's second year after he looked really, really bad. Like, Eli looked bad his rookie year.
Oh, yeah, it was horrible.
And then 2006, things don't necessarily go according to plan. You have that scumbag quitting Tiki Barber who admitted to quitting on WFAN, by the way. He admitted. He said, I quit. So you have distractions of even that. Shockey, 2006 was the collapse with Vince Young and Matthias Kiwanuka and Plaxico Burress and Michael Strahan were going at it with each other. So, listen, if we were to flash back to, go back to 2006 in a time machine, I'm looking at, hey, Tom Coughlin, I love offense, right? Tom Coughlin, top 10 offense in 2005. 2006, some things went wrong, fluky games. They've actually won football games. Let's run it back. They made the playoffs in 2006, right?
Yeah. Tom Coughlin and Eli Manning are great examples of like New York is just over dramatic. Daniel Jones and Joe Judge aren't.
They literally made the playoffs 2 out of their first 3 years, yet there was, you want a Tom Coughlin gone and blah, 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 you should have been gone. Meanwhile, we're debating the same thing about Joe Judge, and he's won 10 games. And he's won 10 games in 2 years.
So this is just too important to screw up. Do you want to? We're not going to do like our GM, like this is what our candidates would be, but I guess can you just announce who they are, and we can maybe give quick hitters on it real quick?
Yes.
I do want to keep this pod under an hour.
So let's do this.
Oh, one more point on Joe Judge on that. The longer this goes, the more ammo that Joe Judge has to point to on John Mara. Because again, I know Joe Judge is the dumbest human being to ever walk Earth right now, but he does have ammo to go at John Mara. The Jason Garrett thing is almost enough alone to be like, look, you did this to me. You screwed me on this.
Yes, I've said this on the show about if you fired Jason Garrett at the beginning of last offseason and Joe Judge is able to bring in his own offensive coordinator and they stink again this year, then there is no question, undoubtedly, Joe Judge is fired. So that is, it is John Mara meddling and John Mara looking himself in the mirror saying, I screwed this up again, and now I need to give this guy a shot. And that's why, like, we talk about Garrett. Well, shut up about Garrett, Justin, Bobby. Well, that's why we talk about Garrett all the time, because it just boils down to the dysfunction that is this team. So here are the candidates that the Giants...
I got some points, though. If I'm Joe Judge, I'm saying that. I'm talking about, hey, look at I have a defensive coordinator we work well with, and Patrick Graham. Look what we've done. Look, you just fired the GM. The personnel sucks. And they were ravished by injuries this year. Like, I know people don't like hearing it, but the injuries do matter. So if I'm Joe Judge, the longer I can hit those points, plus all the stuff that we don't know that had, John Mara in love with the guy 2.5 weeks ago before we had a press conference, that's the longer. Basically, what my point is that Joe Judge is going to be back. Joe Judge is going to be the head coach next year. And Josina Anderson reported it, that he's staying. Like Josina Anderson, like the last time all the beat reporters told Josina Anderson she was wrong, Landon Collins walked. So how about that?
It hurt to the mix that, regardless of what you think of her, it hurt to the mix of like Glazer. When she says something, she's usually right.
Yeah.
All right, so here's the Giants GM candidates so far.
But go ahead.
I said regardless of what you think of her. Giants GM candidates so far.
I just want it to be known what I think of her.
Yeah, you don't like her. Joe Shane, Bills assistant. Now I'm reading it in order. This is an order of the news that broke of who they're going to be interviewing. They're going to be interviewing Kevin Abrams, but he is not being considered for the job, which waste of time.
Supposedly they might not even interview him now.
No, I thought they were. Joe Shane, Bills assistant GM. Ryan Poles, Chief Executive Director of Player Personnel. Monty Ossenfort, Titans Director of Player Personnel. Ryan Cowden, Titans Vice President of Player Personnel. Adrian Wilson, Cardinals VP Vice President of Pro Scouting. And then while we were recording, so it is 9:20.
We got another one?
We have 2 more. We are recording this at 9:20 p.m. on January 10th, 2022. San Francisco 49ers Assistant GM Adam Peters and San Francisco 49ers Director of Player Personnel Ran Carthon. So those are the 2 names that have been added to the list.
I will say I like this list so far. Now, I haven't done any research on Adrian Wilson, the 2 guys.
Very wide net. Very wide net. Which that is the... Literally, you could not get more opposite from 2018. But is it bad, Bobby? I want to be excited about this, but I'm not.
You should be. I think you should be excited about the GM search. Because it's like we can't control what happens with Joe Judge.
That is true.
I think we are interviewing some good GMs, and I think we might get a good GM. It'd be lucky because John Mara's an idiot, but I think being excited about the new GM is fine. Unless we get Louis Riddick.
It's
or Scott Pioli.
I don't think they're going to interview Louis Riddick. I think what Jordan Raanan said is that the wide net and the wide casting of candidates is going to continue, which is kind of bizarre. Like, literally, this is the opposite of 2018. What are they interviewed 4 candidates back then, and now we're already up to what, 7, 8? Let me do some counting. 1, 2,
and again,
3,
if Joe
4,
Judge
5,
brings
6,
in
7.
a good OC, like, the tune can, you know how it goes. The tune can change on people quick.
Yeah.
So if Joe Judge can get in an OC, we like Patrick Graham, stuff can change. So like I don't have total, I think Joe Judge should be fired, and I feel strongly about that, but I don't have total lost hope on Joe Judge.
I want to like Joe Judge.
I know people hate his guts.
Yeah.
This new GM, and here's something before we'll say this again on the next pod, but there's so little info on these guys. I mean, you got a lot of info on Joe Schoen, but that's like the outlier. There's so little info on these guys, and you're kind of judging them on what their GM did and some interviews here and there and what other people say about them. So, what I said is like, hey, I'm not going to have a huge, strong opinion unless it's a TV guy or someone who's done the job before. You can say see what they've said. And these guys don't say what their moves were on purpose for this reason. I want to hear your opening press conference. I want to hear your vision, and I want to see you work it out.
Yeah.
Don't just say it like Dave Gettleman did and not do it. Put together a vision we can believe in and follow through with that plan. And be good at drafting, be good at player evaluation. That's what I will judge you on, not by your... Because basically what we have is these guys' LinkedIn accounts and a story here and there.
And fire Chris Pettit. I do think, by the way, I'm going to put it out there right now. We're doing GM candidates on either Thursday or Friday show. We're going to wait and see how many guys that they interview, and if we get a sense that the GM hiring may be coming, then we'll record sooner with the candidates episode, so then we can, we'll play it by ear, but we're going to have a GM candidates episode. So I am going to put it out there right now. I do think Joe Schoen is going to get it.
I think Joe Schoen's going to get the GM job from stuff we've heard the last few weeks, connections. Hell, I might even think the Giants O-line coach might be coming from Buffalo. We know that Judge loves Dabble and tried to get him the last 2 years, and Dabble even wanted to come.
Yep.
So that'll excite me. And again, if Joe Judge gets the right OC, you get a couple offensive line. Not expecting the offense to be good next year, but it can be average. And you get this offense average.
Here we go again. I said the same thing about this year.
I know. But they're making changes this year.
Oh, okay.
Well, they are. They're hiring a new GM.
Yeah, no, I
and a new offensive coordinator.
I know. I'm just trying
which
to be
are two very important pieces.
Debbie
so
Downer.
I'm not saying to expect it, but it's not unreasonable to have some excitement about the future with the new GM, especially if it's a guy like Joe Schoen.
Yeah, Joe Schoen
seems like the real deal.
Out of the 7 guys, I mean, just looking off the titles, it's San Francisco 49ers assistant GM Adam Peters and Joe Schoen, who's the Bills assistant GM. Those are the 2 assistant GMs that have been interviewed, and I think, I got to look at Adam. I'm not going to, at least with Joe Schoen, he is the most qualified out of all those guys based off of the experience, the years of experience that he has working in player development and also college scouting, and then also being an assistant GM, where this is only the second assistant GM that they have interviewed. So that's why I'm kind of siding with him. I have to look at Adam Peters' resume to say, is he more qualified? But it's good that I want them interviewing.
Without doing a ton of research, I think I would like Joe Schoen more than Ed Dodds, because you did a very good video, a lot of research. They rebuilt that Bills in the way they did things.
Yes,
and Joe Schoen was a big part of that.
I want to save that point. I'm going to save that point. You can go on the Talking Giants YouTube channel. I did a whole about 11.5-minute video on Joe Schoen and what he's about. But also, if you don't want to watch that video, I'm literally going to say the same thing, similar things on the next podcast when we do GM candidates.
All right. Appreciate you guys following along this season. You know what? The season's over. We're on the off season. No more thank yous. We appreciate you guys. We'll see you on the next episode, either Thursday or Friday. Hell, even Wednesday if we get some fucking crazy-ass news. So we do appreciate... I need to stop cussing. I've been cussing too much on the podcast. Oh, one other thing I wanted to say. Talking Giants is a family. And one of our family members, Fitty Smalls, there's a family member. Her first name's Olga. I won't give you more details, but they're going through some stuff. So I just wanted to let her know that we're thinking about her, praying for her and the family. Again, I do view Talking Giants as a community more so than just a Bobby and Justin from 3 to 6. So we appreciate you guys, and when I say that, I mean it. We'll see you on the next pod. Until then, let's go Big Blue.